The forest had grown silent in the way that precedes death. Alara noticed it first when the birdsong stopped, then when even the wind seemed to hold its breath among the ancient oaks. She pulled her worn cloak tighter against the autumn chill, her gathering basket only half filled with the herbs her grandmother needed. At 17, she'd walked these woods countless times, but never had they felt so watchful, so tense with anticipation. The blood appeared first as scattered droplets on fallen leaves, black in the fading light, then a smear across stone, then a trail that no healer's daughter could ignore, even as the sun dipped toward the horizon and shadows pooled like spilled ink between the trees. She found him in a hollow where the roots of an enormous elm had created a natural shelter. At first, her mind couldn't reconcile what she was seeing. The wolf was massive, far larger than any she'd encountered in the king's forests. His fur was dark as midnight, though matted now with blood that seeped from terrible wounds across his flank and shoulder. Someone had attacked him with silver weapons. She could see the poisoned burns even from a distance, the way the metal had seared his flesh. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Wolves were dangerous enough, but this creature was something else entirely. His eyes, even glazed with pain, held an intelligence that made her breath catch. They were amber like honey held up to sunlight, and they fixed on her with an awareness that wolves shouldn't possess. "Easy," she whispered, though whether to him or herself she wasn't certain. "I won't hurt you." The wolf's lip curled, revealing teeth that could tear her throat open in an instant. A low growl rumbled in his chest, but it was weak, fatting. He was dying. Even without her healer's training, she could see that clearly enough. The silver poisoning was spreading through his veins, and he'd lost too much blood. Alara set down her basket and did what her grandmother had taught her since childhood. She forgot fear and remembered purpose. A healer serves all creatures, her grandmother always said, human or beast, noble or commoner. Life is sacred in all its forms. She approached slowly, hands visible and empty, speaking in the same soft, steady tone she used with frightened children in the village. "I have yarrow for the bleeding and honey for the burns. My grandmother taught me how to draw poison from silver wounds. My own uncle was struck by a silver blade meant for a thief. I can help you, but you have to trust me." The wolf watched her with those unsettling eyes. His growl faded. When she knelt beside him, close enough that his hot breath stirred her hair, he didn't snap at her. Instead, something that looked almost like resignation flickered across his face. "Good," she murmured, already pulling supplies from her basket. "Very good. This will hurt, I won't lie to you, but it will save your life." She worked as darkness fell completely, grateful for the full moon that rose to illuminate her task. First, she packed the deepest wounds with yarrow and cobwebs to stop the bleeding. The wolf whined but didn't move, his body rigid beneath her hands. His fur was surprisingly soft where it wasn't crusted with blood, and beneath it she could feel muscles like corded iron. The silver burns required more delicate work. She made a poultice of honey, garlic, and herbs she'd gathered, designed to draw out poison. Her grandmother had used it only twice in Alara's memory, and both times the patient had screamed. The wolf made no sound, but his entire body trembled as she applied the mixture to his wounds. She saw his claws dig furrows in the earth. "I'm sorry," she whispered, smoothing the poultice carefully. "I'm so sorry, just a little more." Time lost meaning in that hollow beneath the elm. She cleaned and bandaged, applied pressure, and spoke constant reassurances. At some point, she realized the wolf had gone still, his breathing deep and even. She froze, terrified she'd lost him, but no. His chest rose and fell steadily. He'd simply lost consciousness, his body finally surrendering to exhaustion now that survival seemed possible. Alara sat back on her heels, suddenly aware that her dress was soaked with blood and her arms ached. She should leave. Any sensible person would return to the village and never speak of this strange encounter. But the wolf was still so weak, and predators roamed these woods. Dawn was only a few hours away. Surely she could stay until then. She gathered fallen branches and built a small fire at the entrance to the hollow. She'd be missed at home, but her grandmother would assume she'd taken shelter in the forest rather than walking back in darkness. It wouldn't be the first time Ilara had spent a night among the trees. As the fire crackled and sparked, she studied the wolf more carefully. His size was extraordinary, yes, but there was something else. The shape of his skull was slightly different from normal wolves, more refined somehow. And those eyes, when they'd looked at her, had held something that made her skin prickle with a truth her mind refused to accept. "You're not really a wolf, are you?" she said quietly to his sleeping form. "The old stories are true, aren't they? The ones about men who wear wolf skins, about the transformation under the full moon." She laughed at herself, the sound nervous in the darkness. "My grandmother says I spend too much time with my books and not enough in the practical world. She's probably right." The wolf slept on, his breathing steady. Ilara fed the fire and wrapped her cloak around herself. She wouldn't think about the stories. She wouldn't think about the king's decree that any werewolf found in his lands was to be killed on sight, hunted with silver and shown no mercy. She'd saved a dying animal, nothing more. But as she drifted toward sleep, her back against the elm's trunk and the fire warm on her face, she could have sworn she heard a voice carried on the wind. Deep, male, and filled with something that might have been gratitude or might have been warning. "Thank you." She jerked awake, heart hammering, but the wolf hadn't moved. Still asleep, still breathing. She was imagining things, letting fear and exhaustion play tricks on her mind. Dawn came slowly, filtering through the canopy in shafts of gold and green. Ilara woke to find the wolf watching her. His amber eyes were clear now, bright with renewed strength, and the intelligence in them was unmistakable. For a long moment they simply looked at each other, girl and beast, healer and patient. Then the wolf struggled to his feet. Ilara started forward instinctively, worried he'd tear open his wounds, but he was already moving past her, stronger than he should be after such injuries. He paused at the edge of the hollow and looked back at her, just once, with an expression she couldn't read. "You're welcome," she said softly. The wolf disappeared into the morning forest without a sound, leaving Ilara alone with the cold ashes of her fire, and the certain knowledge that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't yet understand. She gathered her scattered supplies and started the walk home, unaware that in a castle 3 days' ride to the north, an Alpha King had just regained consciousness in his human form, demanding to know the name of the girl who'd saved him. Unaware that she'd bound herself to the most powerful werewolf in the realm through an ancient law older than the kingdom itself. The law that said the Alpha King must claim and protect any human who saved his life, regardless of the consequences. 3 weeks passed before Ilara understood the magnitude of what she'd done. 3 weeks of ordinary life in the village of Thornhaven, of grinding herbs with her grandmother and treating fever and flux among the villagers. 3 weeks of telling no one about the wolf in the forest, though the memory of those amber eyes haunted her dreams. The soldiers came on a morning thick with fog, their horses' hooves echoing on the cobblestones like drumbeats. Ilara was in the garden behind her grandmother's cottage, harvesting the last of the autumn sage, when she heard the commotion. Villagers didn't usually gather in such numbers unless something was terribly wrong. She wiped the dirt from her hands and hurried around to the front of the cottage, stopping short when she saw the men. They weren't ordinary soldiers. Their armor was too fine, marked with the king's crest in silver and blue, and they carried themselves with the confidence of men who'd never known defeat. At their head sat a man on a white destrier, his dark cloak embroidered with symbols Ilara didn't recognize. "We seek the healer's granddaughter," the man announced, his voice carrying across the square. "Ilara of Thornhaven, come forward if you value your village's safety." Her grandmother appeared in the doorway, face pale but chin raised in defiance. "What business do the king's men have with my granddaughter? She's done nothing wrong." "That will be determined. Bring her forward." Ilara stepped into view before her grandmother could protest further. "I'm here. What do you want with me?" The man's eyes swept over her, assessing. She was painfully aware of her simple homespun dress, the dirt under her fingernails, the way her dark hair had escaped its braid. She lifted her chin the way her grandmother had, refusing to show fear. "You will come with us, by order of the throne." "On what charge?" her grandmother demanded. "She's a healer's apprentice, nothing more. She's never even left this village." "No charge, a summons. She is to be escorted to Blackmore Castle immediately." Blackmore Castle. The name sent ice through Ilara's veins. Everyone knew of Blackmore, the fortress in the northern mountains where the king's hunters trained, where werewolves were brought for execution, where silver flowed freely, and the dungeons ran red with the blood of creatures caught between human and beast. "I won't go," Ilara said, though her voice trembled. "You have no right." The man dismounted with fluid grace and approached her. Up close, she could see scars on his face, the mark of someone who'd seen combat. But his eyes weren't cruel, merely determined. "I have every right. This is not a request, girl. You saved someone in the forest 3 weeks ago. A wolf, you thought. You will come and answer for that action." Her blood turned to ice. How did they know? She'd told no one, not even her grandmother. She'd barely admitted it to herself. "I saved a dying animal," she said carefully. "Is that now a crime in the king's lands?" "That depends entirely on what the animal was." He gestured to his men. "Bind her hands, gently but securely. We ride within the hour." "No," her grandmother pushed forward, surprisingly strong for her age. "You cannot take her. She's all I have left. Please, if there's been some mistake, let me come with her. Let me speak to whoever has made this accusation." "There is no accusation, old woman, only a summons that cannot be refused." The man's voice softened slightly. "Your granddaughter is not being arrested. She is being brought before someone who wishes to speak with her. If her answers are satisfactory, she will return to you unharmed." "And if they're not?" Ilara asked. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. They allowed her time to gather a few possessions, though 2 soldiers stood in the doorway to ensure she didn't flee. Her grandmother packed a small bag with trembling hands, including herbs and bandages, a spare dress, and the worn book of healing remedies that had been in their family for generations. "Whatever you did," her grandmother whispered as she pressed the bag into Ilara's hands, "whatever you saved, you did it because you are a healer. Never apologize for that. Never let them make you ashamed of your compassion." "I'm frightened," Ilara admitted quietly. "So am I, but you are stronger than you know, child. You have your mother's courage and your grandfather's stubborn will. Whatever comes, face it with your head high." They embraced, and Ilara tried to memorize the feeling of her grandmother's arms around her, the smell of herbs and wood smoke that always clung to her clothes. Then the soldiers were pulling her away, lifting her onto a horse, and the village was falling behind them as they rode north. The journey to Blackmore took 3 days. They traveled quickly, stopping only when necessary, and none of the soldiers would answer Ilara's questions. She learned their leader's name was Commander Thorn, and that he served someone called the Alpha directly. The way he said the title made it clear it wasn't the king they meant. On the second night, camped in a clearing far from any village, Ilara finally gathered the courage to press for answers. "Who is it that wants to see me? If I'm not under arrest, surely I have a right to know." Commander Thorn regarded her across the fire. "You truly don't know what you did, do you?" "I saved a wolf's life. I'm a healer, it's what I do." "That was no ordinary wolf." He leaned forward, firelight playing across his scarred face. "The creature you saved, the one you tended through the night and brought back from the edge of death, was Aldrich Thornwolf, Alpha King of the Northern Packs, the most powerful werewolf in the realm." The world seemed to tilt beneath Ilara. "That's impossible. Werewolves aren't real. They're just stories to frighten children." "Are they? Then how do you explain what you saw? How do you explain a wolf the size of a small horse, intelligent enough to accept your help, strong enough to walk away from silver wounds that should have killed him?" She couldn't. In her heart, she'd known the truth from the moment she'd looked into those amber eyes. She'd simply been too frightened to admit it. "If he's this Alpha King," she said slowly, "then why does he want to see me? I helped him. Surely he doesn't mean to punish me for that." Something that might have been pity crossed Thorn's face. The Alpha King is bound by ancient laws older than the kingdom itself. One of those laws states that any human who saves the Alpha's life creates a debt that cannot be ignored. You bound yourself to him the moment you chose to help rather than flee. He must claim you. Claim me? What does that mean? It means your life is no longer your own. It means you belong to the Alpha King now, in whatever capacity he chooses. It means you cannot return to your village, cannot return to your grandmother, cannot resume the life you knew. The bond between you is sacred and cannot be broken except by death. Ilara felt the blood drain from her face. "But I didn't know. I had no idea. I just wanted to help." Ignorance doesn't matter to the old laws. You saved him, and now he will not let you go. It's his right and his duty. Thorn's expression grew more serious. "There are those in his court who will resent you for this, who will see you as a weakness, a human girl with no power and no value beyond the debt you're owed. And there are others who will remember that the king has declared all werewolves outlaws, and who will wonder why the Alpha King was in the king's forests at all." "You're saying I'm in danger." "I'm saying you saved the life of a man who rules over creatures the kingdom fears and hunts. Yes, you're in danger, but you're also under his protection now, and there are few things in this world more dangerous than an Alpha King protecting what's his." That night, Ilara barely slept. She lay wrapped in her cloak beneath the stars and tried to process everything she'd learned. Werewolves were real. She'd saved their king. And now she was being taken to a castle in the mountains, to a fate she couldn't imagine, bound by laws she'd never heard of, to a man she'd met only once while he wore a wolf's skin. When dawn came and they continued their journey north, Ilara made herself a promise. Whatever happened at Blackmore Castle, whatever this Alpha King demanded of her, she would not cower. She would not apologize for saving a life. And she would find a way to return to her grandmother, ancient laws or not. She had no idea how thoroughly Aldrich Thornwolf would shatter that determination, or how completely he would change everything she thought she knew about duty, destiny, and the dangerous territory between fear and desire. Blackmore Castle rose from the mountain like a dragon's tooth, all dark stone and sharp towers piercing the gray sky. Ilara had never seen anything so massive, so imposing. The walls were thick enough to house entire rooms within them, and silver veins ran through the black stone like frozen lightning. She understood now why werewolves feared this place. The very rock seemed designed to repel them. But as they drew closer, she noticed something strange. The gates stood open, and the guards who manned them wore no silver. Their armor was dark iron and leather, practical rather than ornamental. And their eyes, when they looked at Commander Thorn's party, held a gleam that made her skin prickle with recognition. These weren't the king's men. These were wolves in human skin. "Blackmore was built by the king's grandfather to cage and kill our kind," Thorn said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. 10 years ago, the Alpha King took it from them. Now it serves a different purpose. It's a stronghold against those who would hunt us, and a reminder that we are not so easily destroyed. They passed through 3 gates, each more heavily fortified than the last, before entering a courtyard large enough to hold the entire village of Thornhaven. Servants moved about their business, but they all stopped to stare as Ilara was helped down from her horse. She felt their eyes on her like physical weight, assessing and judging. Some faces showed curiosity. Others showed barely concealed hostility. "They know what you are," Thorn murmured. "They can smell your humanity. Many of them lost family to the king's hunts. They will not trust you easily." "I'm not asking for their trust. I just want to go home." "Then you'll be disappointed." He led her through corridors that seemed to go on forever, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. Tapestries hung at intervals, depicting wolves and forests and battles she didn't recognize. Finally, they stopped before a set of massive oak doors carved with intricate designs of running wolves beneath a full moon. "The Alpha King's private chambers," Thorn said. "He's been waiting for you since we sent word of your capture." "I wasn't captured, you said I was summoned." "In your case, there's little difference." He knocked twice, then pushed the doors open without waiting for a response. "My lord, I've brought the girl." The chamber beyond was enormous, dominated by a fireplace large enough to stand in. Books lined the walls, more books than Alara had ever seen in one place. Maps covered a massive table near the windows, weighted down with daggers. And standing before the fire, silhouetted against the flames, was a man who made her breath catch in her throat. She'd expected someone older, weathered by years of fighting and ruling. Instead, Aldrich Thornwolf looked barely 30, tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair that fell past his collar. He wore simple black clothing, well-made but unadorned, and when he turned to face her, she found herself staring into eyes the color of amber honey held up to sunlight. The same eyes that had looked at her from a wolf's face in the forest. "Leave us," he said, his voice deeper than she remembered from that whispered thank you on the wind. Thorn hesitated. "My lord, perhaps someone should remain, for propriety's sake." "I said leave us, Commander. The girl is perfectly safe." The doors closed behind Thorn with a heavy thud, and Alara was alone with the Alpha King. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. He studied her with an intensity that made her feel transparent, as if he could see straight through to her bones. She forced herself to meet his gaze, remembering her grandmother's words about facing things with her head high. "You're angry," he said finally. "I can hear your heartbeat. You're frightened, but mostly you're angry. I was taken from my home, dragged here against my will, told I belong to you now because I chose to save a dying creature. Yes, I'm angry." Something that might have been approval flickered across his face. "Most humans cower when they meet me. They smell what I am and their instincts scream at them to run. But you're standing there glaring at me as if you'd like to strike me. Would it do any good?" "No, but I'd respect the attempt." He moved closer and she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. He was even larger up close, radiating a kind of contained power that made the air feel heavy. "Do you remember me, Alara of Thornhaven?" "I remember a wolf who was dying from silver wounds. I remember thinking he was far too intelligent to be just an animal. I remember choosing to help rather than run, because that's what healers do." She swallowed hard. "I didn't know saving you would cost me everything." "Is that what you think this is, a cost?" His hand came up and she flinched despite herself, but he only brushed his fingers against her cheek with surprising gentleness. "I owe you my life. The debt between us is sacred, ancient. I cannot repay it with gold or land or titles. The only payment the old laws recognize is protection and provision. You saved me, so now you are mine to guard and care for until one of us dies." "I don't want to be yours. I want to go home to my grandmother." "Your grandmother will be cared for. I've already sent gold enough to keep her comfortable for the rest of her days, and healers to ensure she wants for nothing. But you cannot return to her. The moment you touched me, the moment you chose to save me rather than let nature take its course, you bound yourself to me. That bond cannot be broken." Alara felt tears prick her eyes but refused to let them fall. "So I'm a prisoner then, dressed up in pretty words about debts and bonds, but a prisoner nonetheless." "You're under my protection. There's a difference." "Not from where I'm standing." He smiled then, a quick flash of white teeth that reminded her uncomfortably that he was a predator wearing human skin. "You have fire in you. Good. You'll need it. The court here is dangerous, full of wolves who would tear you apart if they thought I wouldn't retaliate. There are also human nobles who visit from the king's court, who would use you against me if they learned what you mean to me." "And what do I mean to you, really?" The question hung in the air between them. His amber eyes searched her face, and she saw something flicker there, something complex and dangerous that made her heart race for entirely different reasons than fear. "I don't know yet," he admitted. "The bond we share is rare. Most humans who encounter my kind either run or attack. You did neither. You showed compassion to something you didn't understand, and that compassion saved my life. The old laws say you belong to me now, but they don't specify in what capacity. That's something we'll have to determine together. I won't be your servant. I have servants. I won't be your prisoner. I have dungeons for prisoners, and you're not in one. Then what am I supposed to be?" He was quiet for a moment, then moved away to pour wine from a decanter on the side table. He offered her a goblet, but she shook her head. He shrugged and drank from it himself before answering. "For now, you are my ward. You will be given chambers in the East Tower, servants of your own, and access to anything in this castle you wish. The library, the gardens, the training yards. You will attend court functions at my side so that everyone knows you are under my protection. You will learn our ways, our laws, our history. And in return, you will be safe from both the king's hunters and those of my own people who might see you as a threat. And if I refuse, if I try to leave—" His expression hardened. "Then you will discover that protection and possession are sometimes indistinguishable. I will not let you go, Elara. I cannot. The bond between us won't allow it. Every instinct I have now drives me to keep you close, to guard you, to ensure your safety above all else. Fighting that would be like fighting the moon's pull on the tide." She wanted to argue, to rage against the unfairness of it all, but she could see in his eyes that he was telling the truth. Whatever had happened between them in that forest hollow, whatever ancient magic had woven itself around her act of compassion, it had tied them together in ways neither of them fully understood. "I saved you because it was the right thing to do," she said quietly. "Not because I wanted this. Not because I wanted to be bound to you or taken from my home or thrust into a world of werewolves and ancient laws. I know." He set down his wine and approached her again, stopping just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "And if there were any way to undo it, any way to send you home and release you from this bond, I would consider it. But there isn't, so we must make the best of what the fates have woven between us." A knock at the door interrupted them. Aldrich's jaw tightened with irritation, but he called out permission to enter. A woman swept in, beautiful and cold as winter frost, with silver-blonde hair and eyes like chips of ice. She wore a gown of deep blue velvet that must have cost more than Alara's grandmother earned in a year. "So this is the human everyone's whispering about," the woman said, looking Alara up and down with obvious disdain. "She's rather plain, isn't she? I expected someone more impressive, given how thoroughly she's disrupted everything." Aldrich's expression darkened in a way that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. "Lady Morgana, I don't recall summoning you to my private chambers." The woman, Morgana, smiled with teeth but no warmth. "I came as soon as I heard our guest had arrived. Surely you don't expect to keep her hidden away like some secret shame. The entire court is buzzing with questions. They want to know why the Alpha King has dragged a common village girl to Blackmoor and declared her under his personal protection. What I do and why I do it is not subject to court gossip." "Of course not, my lord. But surely you can understand their concern. A human in our midst, one who knows what we are, one who has no ties to our world and no reason to keep our secrets. Some are already calling her a spy for the king." Elara found her voice despite the fear coiling in her stomach. "I'm not a spy. I didn't even want to come here." Morgana's cold gaze fixed on her. "Then why did you save him? What did you hope to gain? Girls like you don't help wounded wolves out of the goodness of their hearts. You saw an opportunity and you took it." "Girls like me?" Elara felt her anger rising to match the woman's hostility. "You mean healers, people who have sworn to ease suffering wherever they find it. I saved him because he was dying and I could help. That's all. I didn't know who or what he was." "How convenient. And now here you are, installed in the Alpha King's castle under his protection, with access to all our secrets. Enough! Aldrich's voice cracked like a whip, and Morgana actually took a step back. Alara is here because ancient law demands it. She saved my life, and the bond that creates is sacred. Anyone who questions that questions laws older than this kingdom itself. I suggest you choose your next words very carefully, Lady Morgana. The threat in his tone was unmistakable. Morgana's face went pale, but she managed a stiff curtsy. Of course, my lord, forgive me. I only worry for your safety and the safety of our people. Surely you can understand that. What I understand is that you're testing boundaries that shouldn't be tested. Leave us, now. Morgana swept from the room, but not before shooting Alara a look of pure venom. The doors closed behind her with more force than necessary, and Alara released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That's Lady Morgana Silvermane, Aldrich said, moving to pour himself more wine. One of the most powerful wolves in my court and the daughter of Lord Silvermane, who controls the Eastern Territories. She's been angling to become my mate for the past 3 years. Your mate, the word felt strange in Alara's mouth. The Alpha King must eventually choose a mate, someone to rule beside him and bear his heirs. Morgana is beautiful, powerful, well-connected, and utterly ruthless. In many ways, she would be a logical choice. She's also jealous, vindictive, and dangerous when she feels threatened. And I'm a threat to her. You're a complication she didn't anticipate. The bond between us changes things, though she doesn't yet understand how much. He turned to face her fully. I won't lie to you, Alara. Your presence here will make you enemies. Morgana is just the beginning. There are others who will see you as an opportunity to weaken me, or as an insult to our kind, or simply as something foreign and therefore dangerous. You will need to be careful. Trust no one except those I explicitly tell you to trust. And am I supposed to trust you? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He studied her for a long moment before answering. I am many things, Alara of Thornhaven. I'm a killer when necessary, a king always, and a wolf above all. But I am also bound to you by laws I cannot break and instincts I cannot ignore. Your safety is now as important to me as my own survival, perhaps more so. So yes, you can trust that I will protect you with everything I have. Even from your own people. Especially from my own people. Another knock interrupted them, gentler this time. At Aldrich's command, an older woman entered, her gray hair braided in a crown around her head. She wore simple but well-made clothing and had kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. Ah, Meredith, good timing. Aldrich gestured toward Alara. This is Alara, my ward. She'll need chambers prepared in the East Tower, clothing appropriate for court, and someone to help her navigate the castle until she learns her way. I'm putting her in your care. Meredith's smile widened as she looked at Alara. A pleasure, my dear. Don't look so frightened. I know this must all be terribly overwhelming, but we'll get you settled. I've been managing the household at Blackmore for 20 years, and I pride myself on making everyone feel welcome, even unexpected guests. Meredith is human, Aldrich added. One of the few who have lived among us for years and chosen to stay. She understands both worlds, which makes her invaluable. You can speak freely with her. The information made Alara's tension ease slightly. Thank you. I appreciate your kindness. Well, you look absolutely exhausted, poor thing. 3 days on horseback is no easy journey. Meredith moved to Alara's side, her manner brisk but gentle. Let's get you to your chambers. A hot bath, a proper meal, and a good night's sleep will do wonders. Everything always seems less daunting after rest. Aldrich nodded his dismissal, but as Alara turned to follow Meredith, his voice stopped her. Alara, one more thing. She looked back at him, standing there in front of the fire like some dark prince from the old stories. The firelight caught in his amber eyes, making them glow. Tomorrow night there's a gathering of the court. You'll attend at my side. It's important that everyone sees you, sees that you're under my protection, and understands that any insult to you is an insult to me. The gown Meredith provides will make it clear you're not a servant or a prisoner, but someone of status in this castle. Can you do that? Can you stand beside me in front of the whole court and show them you're not afraid?" Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to hide in her chambers and avoid the hostile stares and dangerous politics of werewolf nobility. But she thought of her grandmother, who'd faced down angry villagers and plague and grief without flinching. She thought of the promise she'd made to herself on the journey here, that she wouldn't cower. "I can do that," she said, lifting her chin. "But I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I'm a healer's granddaughter from a small village. If they can't accept that, no gown will change their minds." Something like admiration flickered in his expression. "I'm beginning to think the fates knew exactly what they were doing when they put you in my path. Go with Meredith. Rest. Tomorrow will be challenging enough." The chambers Meredith led her to were larger than the entire ground floor of her grandmother's cottage. A massive bed dominated one wall, piled high with furs and pillows. Tapestries depicting forest scenes covered the stone walls, and a fire already crackled in the hearth. Through an archway, Alara could see a smaller room with a copper tub that servants were already filling with steaming water. "It's too much," she whispered. "I'm just a village healer." "You're the girl who saved the Alpha King's life," Meredith corrected gently. "That makes you far more important than you realize. Now, let's get you out of that travel-stained dress and into a proper bath. Then we'll talk about what you need to know to survive tomorrow night." As Alara sank into the hot water an hour later, feeling the aches of travel begin to ease from her muscles, she let herself acknowledge the full weight of what had happened. She was trapped in a castle full of werewolves, bound by ancient laws to a man who could shift into a massive wolf, and surrounded by people who saw her as either a threat or an opportunity. Her old life was gone, perhaps forever. But she was alive. She had been shown a strange kindness by Aldrich, whatever his reasons, and Meredith had already proven that not everyone here wanted her dead or gone. "You ask me what I need to know," Alara said as Meredith returned with soft towels and a nightgown. "Tell me the truth. How much danger am I really in?" Meredith's expression grew serious as she helped Alara from the bath and wrapped her in a towel. "Considerable danger, I won't lie. The court is full of predators in every sense of the word. They respect strength and despise weakness. Show fear and they'll tear you apart. Show arrogance and they'll do the same. You need to find a balance between confidence and humility." "That's a very narrow line to walk." "Yes, it is, but I've seen the way the Alpha King looks at you. That bond between you, it's powerful, rare. Most wolves go their entire lives without experiencing anything like it. He will protect you, Alara, but you need to be smart. Stay close to him at the gathering tomorrow. Don't accept drinks from anyone but servants you've seen him drink from first. Don't go anywhere alone. And whatever you do, don't let Lady Morgana provoke you into saying or doing something rash. She already hates me. She fears you, which is worse. A woman like Morgana has built her entire identity around becoming the Alpha King's mate. Your presence threatens that dream, and she will do anything to remove you from the equation." Meredith helped Alara into the nightgown, her movements practiced and efficient. "But here's what you need to remember. You have something she doesn't. You have his gratitude, his protection, and a bond that cannot be broken by politics or ambition. Use that. Let it give you courage." Later, lying in the enormous bed with the fire casting shadows on the ceiling, Alara thought about bonds and debts and the strange twist of fate that had brought her here. She thought about amber eyes looking at her from both wolf and man, about the promise of protection from someone who was himself dangerous beyond measure. Tomorrow she would face a court full of wolves. She would stand beside an Alpha King and pretend she belonged in a world she barely understood. She would wear a gown meant for nobility and try not to shame herself or her grandmother's memory. But tonight, she let herself be just a frightened girl far from home, and she cried into the expensive pillows until exhaustion finally claimed her. In his own chambers, Aldrich stood at the window and stared out at the mountains, feeling the pull of the bond that connected him to the sleeping girl in the East Tower. It was stronger than he'd expected, more insistent. Every instinct demanded he go to her, ensure her safety with his own eyes, guard her through the night. He'd told her the truth. The bond between them was sacred and unbreakable. What he hadn't told her was that such bonds were said to form only between souls that recognized each other across lifetimes, that were meant to find each other again and again through eternity. He didn't believe in such romantic notions, but he couldn't deny what he felt when he looked at her, the girl who'd shown kindness to a dying wolf without thought for her own safety. Tomorrow would be dangerous for them both. His court would test her, judge her, and some would plot against her. But he would be there, and anyone who threatened what was his would learn exactly how vicious an alpha king could be when protecting his own. The moon rose full and bright over Blackmore Castle, and Aldrich Thornwolf smiled with all his teeth at the night, already anticipating the battles to come.